Excellencies, colleagues, distinguished guests, welcome. This is our center's first discussion regarding problem of guarantor system in the context of Middle East problem, especially the Arab-Israeli conflict. So I will not talk too much, rather I will give the floor to our guest professors. But before I do it, I want to just mention a couple of things, short points regarding why we are organizing this panel. First of all, let me give you short insights. So we have been working on normalization of our diplomatic relations with Israel for the last 2.5 years. And we came a long way, and we negotiated too many things. And the Israeli Prime Minister was about to visit Turkey, so you all know this. But suddenly, a conflict started, and 2.5 years of all hard work, labor, vanished. So I think this shows how important to really find a solution to this problem. This is just what we experienced in the last 2 years. So not only that, but because of this problem, we are not able to find a solution to energy crisis. We are really having difficulties to solve some of the trade route projects and peace, reconciliation, and all those problems. Whenever we achieve something, whenever we are closer to achieve something, suddenly we have a problem, we have a conflict, and we start from scratch. So again, it's now catch-22, so that's why we have to, we thought about this and we decided that it would be better to really deal with this problem from a more structural point of view. Our Minister of Foreign Affairs, Hakan Fidan, mentioned his position a couple times. So when we look at the nature of the conflict, what we see is everybody agrees on 1967. So when we ask Israelis, they say okay. Palestinians, they say okay. So the only party who rejects 67 was Hamas. But 2017, they said okay to 67 as well. So we all agree on this problem, but unfortunately, nobody moves forward. There is no solution to this problem. And we cannot really achieve what everybody agrees on. That's why the root cause of the problem is not agreeing on something, but how to implement what we agreed on. So this was our main question. That's why we thought maybe this guarantor system might be a solution to this problem. How these conditions or these conditions that we agreed on would be implemented in this case. So this is our promise, or this is our way to solve this problem. So this is not a project, this is not something concrete, but this is more kind of, we are trying to open a debate about the problems that prevent how this implementation really doesn't work. So that's why I will not talk too much, but I will give the floor to my colleagues and academic friends. So first, I start with Professor Hüseyin Işıksal. So he will cover this issue from the legal framework of guarantorship model.
Thank you, dear President. First of all, let me thank you, Foreign Minister of Turkey, Research for Strategic Research, for this very timely event. It's always nice to be in my homeland. Secondly, at the outset, I would like to celebrate 100th anniversary of Republic of Turkey. Turkey is not only important for Turkish nation and for Turkish Cypriot and for whole Turkic world. Turkey is also significant for all the oppressed and all the subordinated nations in the world. And Gaza event is just one simple example in this way. And finally, last but not least, I would like to express my sincere condolences for the victims in Palestine, especially innocent children. May their soul rest in peace. Why it's here, I don't know. Can we put it to the start, please? Yeah, first of all, I would like to set the scene and want to make some observations, because without making this framework, without establishing this structure, I don't think any of our discussions will make any sense. This is not my first slide anyway. Okay, so first of all, the current status quo is not acceptable for any of the sides. And there's a necessity for negative peace. As you know, negative peace put by Johan Galtung was, for so long, has been oppressed and pushed to the, marginalized. But what we witness in Gaza is, first of all, we have to finish the conflict. Because the violence will only exaggerate the new violence. It will cause vicious circle of violence. And as Majest Hakan Fidan stated, we are on the verge of either this will lead to further war or it will lead to further peace. So hopefully all these unfortunate events will lead to further peace rather than for the further war. So my other observation is Israel domination of Palestine and war crimes against the civilians have no justification at all. You cannot find any ground on justifying the killing of the innocent people and war crimes. One other observation is, being similar to Nakba and Naksa, if Palestinians left their homes in Gaza, they will never be able to return back. And this is very evident. My one other observation is, sometimes we forget the status of State of Palestine. State of Palestine is a member of Arab League, is a member of Islamic Cooperation, it's a member of G77, it's a member of International Olympic Committee, it's a member of UNESCO UNECDAD, it's a member of International Crime Court, it's a non-member observer state of the United Nations, and it's officially recognized by 139 states of the United Nations. So Palestine, the state of Palestine, has a capacity and right to sign any guarantorship agreement with any country. And my final observation, initial observation, is the two-state solution is the only way forward to sort out this conflict. And one side should never claim legitimacy over the other side. My time is very limited. I have been warned by the president. So I want to talk about, for example, what should be the role and power of guarantors in Palestine as in every case. So here, the first thing is, whatever we do on paper is meaningless. It's all dependent to the actor. So the guarantors, first of all, should be strong states, should be committed states to have this arduous task, should be capable states, should have mediator capabilities with the power of deterrence. If you don't have this characteristic in a guarantor state, then any agreement on paper will be meaningless. And for guarantorship agreement, when I look all these agreements, we see that three principles are key. Without satisfying these principles, we cannot lead anywhere. What are these principles? First of all, intervention should be by invitation. So the invitation should come by sides to be their guarantor power. Secondly, nothing about them without them principle should be applied. We shouldn't marginalize or ignore any sides of the conflict. And the third principle, the security of one side should not create insecurity for the other. So that's the question that we have to find answers. How one side security will not be other side insecurity. But can we sort it out? Definitely we can sort it out. It's all matter of negotiation. Next, I want to talk about very briefly lessons from the 1960 Republic of Cyprus guarantorship model. Of course, it's a very brief model, but we can take some points from this guarantorship model and ramify it to the Palestinian issue. First of all, there should be a very important conference as an initial step. This is because how we established the guarantorship system in Cyprus was something like this. In 1958 in Paris, in NATO conference, the two sides agreed to meet and sort out the problem. Then, 1959, Turkey and Greece, two main powers, agreed on the future agreements. So this means that the Palestinian, in order to sort out Israeli-Palestinian conflict, first of all, the potential guarantors should meet immediately, without losing any time. And then, in London conference, just 1 week after the Zurich conference, the Republic of Cyprus alliance guarantorship agreement have been settled down. So my point is that on the first, the potential mediators could meet, potential guarantors, and without giving too much break, in less than a week, then with the addition of Palestinian and Israeli sides, the new model could be started to discuss initially. So when we look at the Cyprus model, for example, we see that one of the key points is that each guarantors reserve the right to take unilateral action. So if we expect to, form a sort of mediation on every single issue, we cannot go anywhere. One other thing that we can apply in the Palestine-Israel model is tripartite headquarters model, which we can make it four-way, actually, model, which guarantors and the governments of both sides should form a sort of committee to discuss the question at foreign ministers level. And of course, there should be rotation, and any military agreement should be put into practice on the day of signature, without making it wait. I can go further detail, but as I said, my time is very limited. So when we come to Israel-Palestine issue and the Turkish model, first of all, without any doubt, Turkey is the best candidate to be a guarantor. Historical, cultural, religious bond, ex-ruler of the region. I know that when you look at this, some sources, they will always talk about irredentism and expansion of Turkey, which is not at all related. But geographical proximity, cultural ties, having a potential to communicate with all sides of the conflict, and as I said at the beginning of my speech, to be strong, committed, capable, mediator capabilities with the power of deterrence, and most importantly, as probably the only country who will take the invitation from the Palestinian state, makes Turkey an ideal candidate to be a guarantor. So we see that in the Turkish model, first of all, both parties should reach an agreement, and both parties should have the responsibility to ensure its implementation. There should be multiple guarantors, one for State of Israel, one for State of Palestine. And Turkish troops probably should only operate in Palestine, while the other guarantor should only operate in Israel. And guarantors should pave the way for two-state solution. And we know that there will be no permanent solution to this problem without a sovereign Palestine. So to sum up, I am okay with the time, yes, President? Yes. To sum up, it's high time for actions, not for words. When we look at the recent history, we see that even if there are many securities on paper, there are no securities on the ground. There are too many promises, too many commitments, too many principles, which all of them have been violated. So in this respect, for me, none of the model we can just apply to the Palestine. Palestine has its own, characteristics. And we have to make a very imminent, a small but imminent steps urgently to show for the good faith. And we should remember that not only Palestinians but also Israelis will never feel secure without a guarantorship. And when this process started, both governments should know that both the sending and the receiving government should know that this will take time. At least 10 years is needed for guarantors to stay in these lands for the permanent solution. And only with a credible military guarantee, I believe that we can lead to peace and political stability. Thank you.
So thank you very much. As we all know, one of the problems of this conflict is there is no enforcement mechanism. So the reason why we are introducing this guarantor model is it might enforce somehow on the sides to abide by the deal that they signed for. So that's why we are really looking for answers for this. Thank you, Professor. And we continue with our second speaker. Please note your questions. We will have a little more time for question and answer section. Now, so I'm going to give the floor to Professor Yücel Acer to discuss further on this issue.
Thank you, President, and I would like to give my thanks to Center for Strategic Studies for this quite valuable discussion on, guarantee system proposed by Turkey for the existing Palestinian issue at the moment. As an international law scholar, I'm going to try to establish a legal framework for understanding the guarantee system and its significance in international relations. As we all know that international law regulates the responsibilities and rights of states only. And the rules of international law are created by states themselves and also enforced by states themselves. So that means there is no effective enforcement system in international law, even in our time. Although international law has a couple of 100 years to develop itself until so far, and unfortunately we have still no effective mechanism of enforcing the rules of international law. I think the humanity achieved only the Security Council system so far, and that's an achievement, that has been an achievement, in fact, but we haven't seen that it was really working at all. We have witnessed this during the Russia-Ukraine war. There were immense need that Security Council should act to stop war, but it couldn't. And quite recently, we have been witnessing within a couple of days that Security Council came together for 3 times, but there was no decision. And it was vetoed by one state or another. So there is no effective enforcement system. That means it's up to the states to enforce the international law rules. Unfortunately, that's the relatively most effective system we have at the moment. So that's why it's quite significant to know or organize how states are going to behave in cases where we really need to apply the relevant rules of international law. I think we should look at the guarantee discussions from this perspective first. If we look for a settlement or a process, then we need a support from other states which are related to issue and powerful enough or related enough to enforce these rules of the principles of peace or a process. So let me look at the definition of guarantee systems which we have witnessed so far over a couple of centuries. I'm not going to look at the history in much details, but I try to exert some observations about how the system developed until our time. If we look at what we mean when we say the guarantee system, it is actually the intervention of another state or states into an issue for 2 possible reasons. The first one is to protect an existing status which has already been established. So that means the first possibility that the other state or states intervene to protect the existing status concerning any kind of issues between states. That's one possibility. The other one is that rather than protecting the existing status, states may intervene to initiate and to support a process which is needed to settle existing international disputes or issues. So there are two possibilities that states are intervening to do this: protect the status or initiate a process and protect it and encourage it. And that's called actually guarantee system. And it's quite valuable in terms of applying the relevant rules of international law. So let me try to give a little bit more details about what kind of status could be needed to protected by the intervention of other state or states. There are a variety of possibilities. You know, sometimes in the history it was like an agreed issue between two states, between two or more states. It could be sometimes impartial status of a state or states to be protected by other state or states. And sometimes the rights of minorities, the existing minorities, to be protected by the intervention of other states. And as I say, it's sometimes a ceasefire or a peace agreement between two or more states to be protected. We have seen a lot of examples of this, which needed guarantee from other state or states which were powerful enough to do this. And I said it could be a process to be initiated or supported by the intervention of other state or states as a guarantor. It is mostly actually a process of settling an existing dispute between states, and it's sometimes a ceasefire that should be established at least to stop the war for a while and open a door for a discussion to settle the dispute. So these are possibilities, and these are related to definition of guarantee between states within the framework of international law. I could also say a couple of things about the relations between the peace agreements and the guarantee system. Especially in 18th century, we have seen a lot of peace agreements which covered the clauses in itself as a system of, you know, securing the application of the peace agreements. This was quite significant because mostly after the wars, the peace agreements are done or have been done especially in favor of defeating states rather than defeated states. And mostly, unfortunately, peace agreements are not really representing the pure justice, but rather representing the interests of defeating states or successful states after a war. So that's why, for such kind of peace agreements, it's quite crucial that there should be a guarantee system to apply it. And we have seen that most of them have not been really properly applied despite the guarantee. But in some cases, it was possible due to the guarantee system to apply at least for a while or for a reasonable period of time. So peace agreements mostly needed to be protected by a guarantor. How about the forms? And I say in the past, it was always in international agreements, peace agreements, in which we have seen clauses relating to guarantee systems. But in our time, if there are to be a guarantee system to be established, mostly separate agreements or separate, consensus are needed to establish this alongside with a peace agreement or with a settlement or a process of settling an international dispute. Let me briefly, as a last topic, try to concentrate on effectiveness of enforcement system within the framework of guarantee system. There are scholars who examined the possibility of success of guarantee systems in terms of especially the peace agreements. We have seen that at least around half of them were successful. So it's quite a big achievement considering that there is no effective enforcement system in international relations and international law. I think that's a quite reasonable success. We have been able to give a couple of examples. One of them is quite recent one, like, during the Ukraine-Russia conflict, unfortunately still going on, the grain deal was achieved because of the guarantees given by the United Nations and Turkey. And we shouldn't underestimate the success of this agreement because over 30 million tons of food have been able to transport it from Ukraine, basically from Ukraine to the world. It was only possible because Turkey was trying to protect these ships from any kind of dangers, especially from mines. And still, Turkish Navy is still, wandering around in the Black Sea to protect any kind of, collusion with mines. That's almost daily routine. And it was only possible because of the Turkish guarantee that it was a successful one. And unfortunately, the deal is not working at the moment, but still the guarantors are still working to reinitiate it, United Nations and Turkey, and there is a great possibility, at least a possibility that this deal could be reinitiated. I think that's enough for the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. That's great. So 10 minutes exact. So thank you. As Center for Academic Research, so we are organizing this panel because we are really looking for help from academia, from our colleagues, to really find a solution or some kind of way to solve this problem for the region. I know it will not be easy. I know it's been like for decades of long history of this problem, but at the end of the day, the problem is not solved because there is no way to enforce anything on the sides. So that's the elephant in the room. Nobody likes to speak, but we always said when we sat down with our colleagues, we always told them whatever we agree on right now, especially to Israelis, so one day another crisis starts and in Palestine, and whatever we said here will be vanished. And we very clearly communicated this with our partners. So that's the reason that we are really seeking an answer to this problem. So now our next speaker is Professor Muhittin Ataman, and he will look at the issue from Middle East perspective.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I also want to thank Center for Strategic Research and its president, Mr. Nuh Yilmaz, for organizing such a timely event. It is really difficult to talk about the Palestinian issue, as always. Here, first, I want to lay the ground for the discussion, then I will try to focus on certain points, whether a guarantorship model is feasible in the Israeli-Palestinian question or not. As we all know that the Hamas attack on October 7 was quite effective. All observers, academicians, they have been discussing whether it was a successful one or what it has changed on the ground. I will just briefly mention two significant points. One is it was a great success for the Hamas part because it brought back the Palestinian cause. I use this phrase in quotation mark because not only Arabs, most Muslims worldwide, they consider the Palestinian issue not as a problem, but as a cause. Considering this 1 century-long oppression and of the Palestinian people and atrocities of the Israeli state. Considering the United States' decision of recognizing the United Jerusalem as the capital of Israel and the annexation of the Golan Heights by the Israeli state, the introduction of the Deal of the Century project, and the following signing of the Abraham Accords by some Arab countries and the Israelis, all this just eradicated the Palestinian question, not the Palestinian cause. So there was no Palestinians on the table. It was not even a subject on the negotiation table. So no one cared about the Palestinians, about their oppression going on daily basis. So Hamas has successfully brought back this to the negotiation table, to the agenda of the world politics, on the agenda of the world politics, for the Arab streets, for the Muslim streets, and even worldwide for any human being taking care of universal human values, as we see all over the world. The second point that I want to mention is the attack have given a great damage to Israel, which broke the myth of Israel's invisibility and the Iron Dome system. Israel used to feel itself as untouchable. It considered itself as one of the, if not the most, one of the most secure states for its citizens in the world. As we have seen after this attack on October 7, it's not. It's not a safe haven, not only in the occupied territories, but within the 1967 borders. Israel's underestimation of the Palestinians and its overconfidence and deterrence was severely damaged, if not shattered down. And when we look at the crisis, when we go back, I think no word is left to be spoken about the Israeli-Palestinian question, which is on the agenda of international politics for a century. Therefore, as my colleague has just repeated the same phrases, not the words, but the actions must be the motto for anyone who speaks about the issue. Therefore, I think at this moment, some coercive diplomatic means must be utilized in order to reach a sustainable and permanent peace and stability in the region. And within this context, as we see, after the latest wave of violence in the region, the only concrete proposal came from the Turkish Minister of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Hakan Fidan. And later on, other Turkish officials repeatedly underlined this model of guarantorship system to be implemented in the region. Naturally, it's not a full-scale developed model at this point. But as I have said, if we want to take a concrete step, some kind of coercive diplomatic means must be utilized. And here we have an alternative. After saying this, I want to discuss some of the points which can be considered as conditions, preconditions, opportunities, or challenges, whether it can apply this guarantorship model or system can be applied to the crisis or not. First of all, for any guarantorship system to be successful, both sides of the conflict must abide by the conditions. That is, both Palestinians and the Israelis must be persuaded to accept this. When I compare the two conflicting sides, I think the Palestinian sides, although they are divided, there are two political entities and some other political actors besides these two mainstream ones, they are ready for any political diplomatic solution. Because as we all see, they face physical extinction and genocidal acts nowadays. So any political and diplomatic solution for them is preferable. However, it's more difficult to persuade the Israeli side, who has been taking unilateral steps, provided the unconditional support of the larger Western countries, especially the United States, the United Kingdom, and some other countries. So Israel never sat on the negotiation table on equal conditions. There was always asymmetry, an asymmetric, unbalanced positioning on the negotiation table. After this great damage, I hope that the Israeli side will take some lessons, learn some lessons from the previous mistakes, and learn to sit on the negotiation table as an equal partner of the other side. Considering the intensification of the global rivalry, the new orientation of foreign policies of regional countries, we see that the conditions on the ground have largely changed. So today's world is not yesterday's. Considering all these changes, the unstable, chaotic global system, I think if we do not impose a sustainable peace, this will lead to a larger and more violent war in the region. The second one is, for any guarantorship system, as my colleagues have just underlined, there must be a legal basis. A legal basis must be provided this guarantorship system. We all know that it's impossible to take anything out from the UN Security Council, mainly due to the US and other Western countries' position. But there can be some alternatives. Probably one alternative would be to take the issue to the General Assembly. It's much easier if only after it was taken to the General Assembly, it will be easier to reach a conclusion. And the other one, the alternative is to take the initiative within the context of a regional international organization. I think within this context, the Islamic Cooperation Organization will be the best alternative. The third one is, it is necessary to establish a regional coalition. Yes, Turkey has declared that it's ready to lead the initiative, but by itself, that is, only Turkey by itself cannot succeed in this attempt. Therefore, it must lead the formation, the establishment of a regional coalition, which is quite difficult to form, by the way. That is, at least some Arab countries must take part with it in this initiative, especially the immediate neighbors, such as Jordan and Egypt, must be part of it. And Saudi Arabia, as a critical country within the Arab world, must be part of this initiative. Okay, considering his previous experiences and interventions, Turkey and its leader, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, I think can play a leadership role in the establishment of this coalition. So within this context, there is no other alternative, because we always need a charismatic leader, a risk-taking calculus of leaders to be taken into consideration while we are talking about this issue. As a matter of fact, when we look at the Israeli-Palestinian question, in the past there was such a leader. King Faisal of Saudi Arabia took two significant initiatives. One led to the establishment of the Islamic Cooperation Organization in the late 1960s. The other one led to the imposition of oil embargo against the Israeli state and its supporters, Western supporters, which led to many earthquakes in international politics. As we all know, the oil embargo of 1973 after the Yom Kippur War. So it is quite critical to find such a leader in the region. That's why, unfortunately, considering today's conjuncture, I see no one else but the leader of Turkey, considering also taking into consideration the very high level capacity and capability, both in terms of hard power and soft power of Turkey. Otherwise, it's time to think about the increase of deterrence for the Arab countries. It is the time to see the potential of the reemergence of the Arab Street as it emerged just a decade ago. And it's the time to consolidate the diversification of foreign policy orientation of the Arab countries. So this is a chance for the leading Arab countries to get rid of these vicious circles of their dependency on external dependence. Yeah, there are too many challenges. When it comes to the Palestinian issue, we always underline these challenges, but to me, there are too many possibilities and opportunities to initiate a sustainable resolution. So as a last point, just want to make sure that in order to have a successful guarantorship system, I think some Western countries also join this. I do not expect some initiatives from the larger one, but I do expect some initiatives on the side of some other European countries, especially the Mediterranean countries, such as Spain and Italy, and some other countries maybe in the Scandinavian region who have the expertise in the conflict resolution. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor. So there are not all countries really seeking for stability, but some of them really are. So because this, again, conflict really works against Turkey's national interest. So that's why this is a national interest for us right now, not only for Turkey, some other countries as well, because of its ripple effects in the region. Because this conflict, when it gets hotter and hotter, so it really destabilizes, may have potential to destabilize some countries or harm our other interests in the region. Thank you again. So now our last speaker, Professor Şahin Eray, Dr. Şahin Eray Kırdım, will talk about negotiation process of guarantorship agreements.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for organizing this event and also for inviting me. So I am actually the luckiest and unluckiest one on this panel because, I am luckiest in the way that I am the youngest one, but I am the latest speaker, so the room is a little bored. So to catch their attention, I would like to start by asking a question. Have you ever tried to eat an unripe apple? Well, I did, and it wasn't very tasteful, to be honest. So it seems a little funny to ask such a question, but it is related to peace negotiations as well, because hold on. Okay. So Henry Kissinger, as early as 1974, recognized that stalemate is the most propitious condition for settlement. Also, I have come across with practitioners saying that certain mediation initiatives are not advisable because the conflict is not yet ripe. So I would like to brief this ripe moment because ripeness is very important in international negotiations. There is a theory called ripeness theory, often credited to William Zertman. It basically centers on the parties' mutually settlements, mutually hurting stalemates, a situation in which neither party can win, yet continuing the conflict will harm, will hurt each of the parties, not necessarily in equal degrees, nor for the same reasons. So mutually hurting stalemate often encourages the parties to to seek an alternative policy or a way out, let's call. Maybe there are those who are interested in the game theory. If we talk from that perspective, a mutually hurting stalemate changes the situation from a prisoner's dilemma game, which is no negotiation, into a game of chicken. So in prisoner's dilemma, there is no negotiation, but when the parties figure out that there's a way out, they get more willing to negotiations. In this theory, there are objective and subjective elements. There are objective and subjective elements. Objective elements are those we recognize in the field, but subjective elements are kind of created by third parties, especially if there's a mediator. It's better to persuade the parties to get into negotiations. Also, there are, like I said, there are second-level variables, and persuasion is one of those. And in second-level variables, the third parties are effective. Also, it's claimed in the doctrine that an agreement can be reached when demands of the conflicting parties are met at an optimum level, which is called mutual demands balance, in addition to the ripeness of conditions. So by the way, it encompasses identity elements, and failure to meet those demands leads to ontological insecurity and will cause a return to conflicts. So from that theoretical perspective, I would like to briefly mention the current situation between Israel and Palestine. So as you see from the figure, there are some issues that the Israel and Palestine will or will not be willing to get into negotiations. And when we look at that figure, we see that the Palestinians are losing their lives and properties, and they are subjected to displacements. Also, they are facing poverty and destitution. By the way, the political organization is losing social support and legitimacy, as well that there is internal power struggles. The Palestinian political organizations relatively do not have control over the territory, which are very disputed. And also, we see a decrease in external support because there is a blockage and the third parties cannot reach the region. Even the health personnel cannot reach the region. But for the Israeli part, it's true that the region is getting unmanageable and there is a risk of sheltering international terrorist organization, as well as because of the relative deprivation of Palestinians, there occurs violences, sometimes even on civilians, but regarding military state-made international pressure, the Israeli part is not very eager to start negotiations. And it is debatable whether it's harming foreign investment and tourism either. So to reach, to persuade them, or to ripe the conditions, let's say, this is another figure, as you see. This is a figure actually related to the Israeli part. So I believe there must be a leadership change in Israel, because the Netanyahu administration is not gonna do that. It's becoming very obvious every day, and also the leader's determination is necessary. So here the third-party role and foreign support and assistance are very important, as well as domestic political conditions. So the Israeli side needs to be persuaded, motivated, and pressured to sit on the table of negotiation. So only after that we can talk about a ripeness moment. Besides, to reach mutually dominant balance, there are issues to be solved, and those issues include territorial disputes, Israeli settlements, status of Jerusalem, Palestinian refugees, blockage and restriction, and also international involvement. It should be solved. Only after that we can talk about a treaty of guarantee and its provisions. So I was advised to keep my opening speech a little short, so that's why I'm gonna stop my speech here, and if you are free to ask questions if you want me to clarify other points. Thank you.
I thank to all our speakers for really observing 10 minutes limitation. So then we have more time to discuss. So the war will end. So we all know this. Although it's difficult to bear the consequences, eventually we know that the war will end. And the war ended many times before. That is the problem. So our question again, after the war ended, so we will go into the same cycle, same vicious circle. That's why in order to really escape from, break that vicious circle, escape from that kind of cycle, so we try to entertain potential ideas of how to really implement 67 depending on the current situation on the ground. Some permanent settlement, maybe international monitoring, maybe some kind of steering committee including regional countries like Egypt, Turkey, Jordan, Saudi Arabia. So on the other hand, US for the Israel side, UK. So there are all these possibilities. We will of course discuss these ideas later on once it's developed and took some better and concrete shape. We will discuss further all these ideas, but now trying to entertain potential solutions. So thank you, our speakers, and if you have any questions, you can hold your hands, and please make your raise your questions in a very short way. So do not do some pirate presentation. So make it concise, make it short, to the point, and introduce yourself, your name, and institution, please. Mike? Yeah. Name your institution, affiliation.
Thank you for the presentation. My name is Esra Öztürk. I'm here on behalf of Harici, the news platform of Turkey. So I have two questions. One is for Professor Ataman. You introduced very great and applicable models, but my question requires a bit going deep into that. So you said that regional countries, especially OIC, might be very effective for creating this solution model and the guarantorship for Turkey. I mean, OIC may lead, or the member countries can support Turkey's leadership for guarantorship model. But the fact is, the Masjid al-Aqsa or Quds issue, let's say, was the only matter which OIC was totally, having I mean, all countries had the same idea. Yes, we should protect. Yes, we should support. Yes, we should solve this problem. But for example, let's talk about Morocco. The Kingdom of Morocco is the country who is responsible for protecting the heritage of Masjid al-Aqsa and signed one of the signers of Abraham deal. So how do you think that this could be proceeded with those countries with such a history? And the second question is for you, Mr.
Please,
Nuhi.
shorter, second question.
Very short. So you are here to create a model to solve this problem, but President Erdogan just said very sharp things against Israel.
Please.
How do you think this diplomatic solution can be applicable while burning the bridges with Israel? Thank you.
So, for the next questions, please be shorter.
That's true. That is the question you have asked. Unfortunately, I couldn't name the Arab League, for instance, as a potential regional organization to back this concrete proposal. We all know that it's much less effective than the OIC. So it's quite difficult to make any decision, to pass any resolution from the Arab League. That's why that is the closest choice was the OIC. That's why I mentioned that organization. The second reason, as I have said in my presentation, the organization was established as a reaction of the atrocities against Masjid al-Aqsa, that is the holy compound for Muslims in the eastern part of Jerusalem. Okay, so the organization itself was established within this context. So it's the Palestine-Israel issue which led to the formation of this organization. So officially, as we all know, when you read the charter of the OIC, you will see that the headquarters of the organization is Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem. Temporarily now it's in Jeddah, a Saudi city. So it has this responsibility. That's true. When it comes to the realities on the ground, for instance, it was quite easy for Morocco to reach an agreement with the Israeli state, not even mentioning the Palestinian issue. So the only reward that they got from the United States about Western Sahara, etc. That's why I have underlined, for the Arab regimes, it was not even forget to be considered as the Palestinian cause, but not even the Palestinian question. There was no question whatsoever, especially after the Arab insurgencies and revolutions. This led, for instance, this led the Israeli side to increase the level of arrogance and unilateralism in its expansionist policies. But nowadays, I think, that's why I consider this as a success, the awareness of the Arab people and the Muslim people, sooner or later, will put a force on their respective regimes to take action. And we know that for some countries, such as Algeria, for instance, they just wait. They follow a wait-and-see policy. But they never forget this issue, none of them. So the Morocco case is one of the exceptional ones. There are too many reasons, I have just briefly underlined some of them, too many reasons for the Gulf countries especially to be persuaded to take action, to take concrete actions. There are some reasons. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And also just to mention, in Jeddah last week, so there were some discussions for concrete measures, and it was part of the final communique. So that might include certain concrete measures to be applied to prevent this ground operation to start. So this is first time OIC is discussing, maybe first time, as far as I know, let's say, discussing taking certain concrete measures to prevent this ground operation. So if this is the beginning, so then we might start the discussion of sanctions to prevent certain negative behaviors in the region. So all the OIC countries supported that. So that was to support your ideas. So there might be something coming out from there as part of the part of this discussion. Questions, please. I'm the moderator, so so I prefer other speakers make their comments. Please.
From Turkish Red Crescent Society. In international humanitarian law, there is a there is a concept of protecting power, which is in charge of, protecting the interest of conflict to the parties to the conflict. So this necessitates, a kind of enjoyment of confidence by all parties to the conflict. You mentioned about, guarantorship by different states, but guarantors should be deterrent. But when it comes to this context, most of the states assume to having deterrence have a record of being adversary or allied to the one of the parties to the conflict. So how do you think, we can achieve this kind of neutrality, for this guarantorship? Because we know that when you approach, as a Turkey, when you approach the England to fulfill its guarantorship role in 1974, England say no, because there is a interest associated with, the context. So how do you address this aspect?
Okay, you are directing?
Yeah,
Professor.
I think it's a little bit related to international law. Let me express my thoughts about your question. First of all, protecting power is quite related to the application of humanitarian law principles. As you know, there are clauses in Geneva Conventions and additional protocols that parties should select protecting powers actually to observe, to let them observe whether these countries are really applying the provisions of these conventions. But as far as the guarantee system is concerned, we don't necessarily say that there should always be a party that all countries, all related sides should trust, in a sense, or they should be so powerful to scare them to apply certain rules or certain status. What Turkey is trying to say here is that there is a lack of confidence between Israel and Palestinian side. So that's a very concrete fact. So in case of a ceasefire or a settlement, there should be some countries to prevent these kind of mistrust behaviors from either side. So Turkey is trying to say that at least for the Palestinian side, Turkey could secure that Palestinian side will or would observe the rules of a ceasefire or a settlement. That's a guarantee. But maybe there could be some other countries who can give some guarantees on behalf of Israel for observing the ceasefire or any kind of settlement.
Yeah, thank you. Please.
Hello. Thank you very much for this panel. My name is Azmi Abu Ghazali. I am a counselor in the Embassy of State of Palestine. Let us return back a little backward before talking about this panel. Now we are dealing with conflict or occupation. When you talk about Russia and Ukraine, you can say conflict. But the situation in Palestine is different. We are talking about a country under occupation since 75 years. Actually, if we return back, we must say it was in 1916, according to Sykes-Picot, and after that, Belfort in 1917. According to what's happened in the United Nations, we are talking about 754 resolution from General Assembly. There is 754 resolution from General Assembly, 97 resolutions from Security Council, from the High Commission of Human Rights, 960 resolutions. What we are seeing now, it looks like we are taking back to the World War I and World War II. So I think there's a result for the case of Palestine. It must be more powerful. It looks like the United Nations doesn't do its work as the League of Nations. It looks like we need a new power in this world. What we are seeing, I can say it's like crusade. No one of the panels say I am here because I am Muslim, but everyone knows what happened from the President of the United States and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of United States and Israel, who said I came here because I am Jewish. Thank you very much.
And your question, you have any questions for anybody?
Yeah, what is the difference? Are we considering Palestine as conflict or occupation?
Okay. Anybody?
Yeah,
But please, concise, short, please.
Once I will just answer the last point that he just made. We are here because we are humans. Not only Muslims, not only Arabs, not only Palestinians. So the question or the problem is not for Arabs, for Palestinians, or for Muslims only. So any human being with conscience must support the the Palestinian cause and resist against this 100 years of occupation. Because I start with the Balfour Declaration, as you have just mentioned. So it's not a new issue, that's true. But on the other hand, we have to talk about technical issues. So today this panel is about technical issues. So whenever we talk about technical issues, we use IR concepts rather than chanting slogans. That's why. Thank you very much.
I should say that that's a great point, whether it's a conflict or an occupation. You know, we can say that at 7th of this month, there was an attack on Israel from Palestinian side, and of course there was a right to self-defense on behalf of Israel, but it is just over, there is a measurement of, proportionality in case of any self-defense. It just, really quite significantly over this threshold. It's not anymore a self-defense. There is no legal basis of Israeli military actions at the moment. It's just an attempt to occupy Gaza Strip. If you look at the attitudes and the way the Israelis is using, or the weapons that Israel is using, it's not about defeating a certain group which is in Gaza. It's rather trying to demolish all the buildings just to make possible to occupy that part of Palestinian territory. That's my understanding from the legal point.
Can can I say something?
Very short.
Yeah, it will be very short. For self-defense, according to the United Nations International United Nations Court of Justice in 2004, it says that Israel doesn't have the right of defense. According to the Charter of the United Nations, Article 51, Israel doesn't have the right of self-defense, because we are not talking about two countries, we are talking about occupation, country, and population. So they don't have the right to defend themselves. And because of that, they are working, and they didn't manage to, they didn't want United States, Britain, France to pass any resolution in the Security Council. Thank you very much.
Let me clarify this point. As far as the occupied territories of Palestine, of course there would be no mention of self-defense at all. But if we are talking about the territory of Israel, which is recognized by many states, then we can talk about the self-defense. You are quite right to say that there is an occupied territory, and the Palestinians trying to get back this territory by military means. It's not creating any self-defense on behalf of Israel. But there is a difference. As far as it's not occupied territory, I can say that it's a self-defense. But self-defense is a very strict proportionality test. You cannot just cross to, as an excuse, to your military actions, which has no limits at the moment.
Before I go into the next question, so we had one more answer left from the previous question, please.
Well, I mean, I would like to respond to the earlier question, which is, I think, very good one. You said that in each side of the conflict, naturally, sides may have normative priorities, and the strong powers that have deterrence power may be closer to one side than the other. So that's why I think the Turkish model, who is saying that guarantors should be guarantor of each side, will sort out this problem automatically. So you don't need to be purely objective. You don't need to be like this equally distanced from both sides, but you have to be committed that you are guarantor of one side. For example, in Cyprus, this is a long debated issue, because I am a special advisor of the Turkish Republic of North Cyprus president, so our official view is very clear. Republic of Cyprus of 1960 is a defunct state. It's not exist anymore. But if the Greek Cypriots are still claiming that they are a so-called owning this defunct state of Republic of Cyprus, then Turkey is guarantor of whole island. So now that's why, for example, while the Greek side are contradicting itself by saying that we don't need any guarantees, it's anachronistic, it's outdated. On the other hand, they are well aware that Turkey is a guarantor of the island still as a member of European Union. So they are trying to find a way, actually, to get rid of this guarantee. So my point is that if this Turkish solution of the Israeli-Palestinian model, it's proved that, that how in Cyprus example we can take a lesson. So it will automatically can sort out many problems. Thank you.
Yes. Please. Again, name and affiliation, please.
Good afternoon, and let me start by introducing myself. My name is Dipuo Ditsatsituba. I'm the ambassador of South Africa. And also, let me begin by appreciating the good presentations made here, as the whole world, all of us who are grappling with what could be the solution, the long-term solution to the problem of the Palestinian occupation and the recent spate. My question is around the guarantors. I hear that Turkey will be on the side of the Palestinian as a guarantor to the conflict. And you also mentioned some of the European countries, I think Italy or others, Spain as well. My question is, if they come on board and having seen the attitude and the superiority thinking of the Israelis and the other allies of the Israel, will these countries be taken as serious guarantors to the situation? Because we need to look at the equation and try to balance the equation. Second question is around mutual aid. That slide interested me so much, and I will request if it's possible to have it. We all know, well, academically we will say there's a mutual aid, but in real sense, in real life, there isn't. Because I've seen on the slide, the Israelis, you've listed sanctions, tourism, and other issues. Here we talk about Palestinians who don't have anything, nothing, just poverty and bombardment all the time. So the effects will never be the same. I will give you an example about our own country, where the apartheid, yes, apartheid has operated for a very, very long time, irrespective of the sanctions and tourism sanctions, economic sanctions, and so on. But because of the nature of the economy, they can still carry on alone. So I'm just leaving it to the academics to say, how do we address this one? Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So again, just to clarify one point, we are again like discussing ideas, but one thing is very clear. So there is no party right now who has enough leverage on Israel that would change Israel's behavior on behalf of peace agreements, implementing what it promised for. So that's why we are here. So to sum up, this is the issue. So because Hamas was rejecting 67, now they agreed on that. So there are, of course, some policy differences, some disagreements, some problems. But I mean, at the end of the day, so we or some other regional countries, we are willing to impose certain power on Palestinian sides to abide by what they signed for. So, but the most important question is, so countries who says they are on the side of peace, but not doing anything to press Israel to change its behavior on behalf of what they signed for. So I think that is the main issue. That's the elephant in the room. So that's why we are trying to push guarantorship discussion from a cold-blooded policy perspective, rather than like political slogans. We can do that easily, but we are not trying to go into that part because it will not solve at least our problem, because we have to be on the table, we have to continue our dialogue, we have to find a solution. That's why, I mean, we are refraining from that kind of positions, but rather trying to more focus on the policy options. So anybody wants to answer?
Directed to my explanations. There are too many things to talk about this issue. But let me just give one significant example. You know, a proposal at the US Senate about providing support for the state of Israel was signed by 99 senators. Only one of them did not sign it, but later on his office declared that he also supports the proposal. Later on, during the voting, all of them, the decision was made unanimously. 97 senators who participated in the voting voted in favor of the proposal. So no one senator dared to even criticize it, okay? So if you are a Western politician, you have to be quite careful whether you want to continue your seat, your position, or not. Otherwise, you know, all Westerners at the academia, in the academia, in media, in the political arena, etc., they have the power to trash everybody out. That's why it's not the ideological support to me. Because let's not forget that Zionism was established in Europe against European and Western countries. No one Muslim country claim for anti-Semitism. This is also a Western concept. Let's please not forget this. So the root, the essence of the problem lays down in the West, not here in the Middle East. That's why if we want to solve this problem, I think we have to take the Westerners in the equation. Since the United States and others, they never criticize any Israeli illegitimate act. That's why it was my personal proposal that to invite some countries, some Western countries who have a more equal and more balanced position towards the issue. That's why I have named Italy or Spain. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, Professor. We continue with Gonca. Yes.
Thank you so much. This is Gonca Şenay from Hürriyet newspaper. At first, when I raised my hand, I was planning to ask about how Israel is going to be persuaded. I was planning to remind their attitude lately to the UN Secretary General, but you have given an answer to that. So my question is, we all know their position. Why should Israel say yes to this guarantorship model? How are they going to benefit from this? And the second question is about these guarantor countries. Muhittin Ataman has underlined, at least mentioned some Western countries. How will they be determined? Under the umbrella of UN or under the umbrella of OIC? And what should be the criteria, especially for the Western countries? Thank you.
Again, I should mention that, there is nothing written on stone here, so we are entertaining ideas again. So, anybody?
I can answer the first question.
Short answer, short question.
You asked that why Israel would say yes to such a guarantorship. So I don't know why it would say yes, but I know why it wouldn't. And because my main point was that the conflict is not ripe yet. So there must be there must be done some things by the international community to persuade Israel, and that it will sign a treaty of guarantee. I don't know what parties will be included in that treaty, but as of now, I see no option to persuade Israel because there is no international pressure on it. And in the presentation that I show you, there are still issues. To provide a mutually hurting stalemate. Israel can still go further and invade. There are still room for Israel to invade more and more. Okay? I don't know why it will say yes, but that's my answer why it wouldn't say yes.
I would like to answer your question with three simple arguments. First of all, we know that this cycle of revenge will not end. Even if Israel kill all the Palestinians in Gaza, this conflict will not end. So, for the real security, sustainable security, Israel will need this guarantee or such an arrangement. Secondly, for the normalization of relations with the Arab world, it's not just based on this bilateral agreements. For the just normalization, order normalization, Israel will also need this agreement. And thirdly, Muhittin Hocam put it very well. Regimes may forget, but people will not forget. And when you look at the trade activities of Israel, what Israel can offer to the whole region in terms of its economic alternatives, economic, incentives, and the image of the country itself, which is, forget about the, Western countries who are blindly supporting Israel. When we look at the public image of Israel, it's really diminishing, and it will cause, some economic problems at the end. And as we see in the South African example, for example, the way to stop apartheid regime was passed from the economic, way. It's not a political way that put, apartheid regime into the line. So, of course, it requires wise thinking. It requires, thinking with, not with wrath, not with revenge, but, more rational thinking. So if the Israeli policymakers come with this line, I think they will also notice that, they need this system. Thank you.
Quite briefly, I'm not sure whether Israel and people of Israel are aware of this fact that there is a very strong reason to say yes to this kind of proposals. As United Nations Secretary General said, this is the result of a huge accumulation of unjust attitudes on the Palestinian people. That's a very strong fact. Let's imagine that Israel is going to defeat Hamas on all other groups completely in Gaza. So what? Do you think that it's going to be settled? It's going to settle all the problems between Israel and Palestine, or is it going to create another reason for Palestinian people to continue on this resistance against such attitudes? So that's why it's not about military win, it's not about military victory, it's about settling with a just settlement. If you are looking for an existing peaceful order in the region, there is no way but a just settlement. That's the answer. But I'm not sure whether all people are aware of this fact.
Thank you.
Okay, I just have two sentences. One is why Israelis must say yes and sit on the negotiation table. Deterrent power of the Palestinians. The only language that Israel speaks is the language of force. And the Palestinians have just spoken that language on October 7. So Israel cannot provide security for its citizens. That's it.
So any other questions? Yes, you were the next.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Ulaşcan Tunçinan. I am the fourth-year student in International Relations Department at Yıldırım-Beyazıt University. My questions will be the Hamas. What should be the Hamas title in that grantorship model? Because some countries of the world recognize Hamas as a terrorist organization, some part of the world as political party. And second one is in that grantorship model, what should be the Hamas position without Hamas representatives or membership in that grantorship model? Is this possible or not? Thank you.
Thank you. Short answers, please.
Very shortly, the question of the Israeli-Palestinian issue is not the question of Hamas. The violence of the Israelis did not start with Hamas, and it will not end with the extinction of Hamas. So let's not put Hamas at the center of our discussion, but the whole Palestinian nation.
Again, from the legal perspective, it's really very difficult to say that Hamas is the same as ISIS or a PKK, simply because there is an occupation in Palestine and there is a resistance movement, although this group sometimes are using illegal methods in commas, that doesn't make them as a terrorist group. If you look at the case of PKK, is there any occupation? Or about ISIS, for example, is there an occupation of the country of ISIS? So it's quite bizarre that when we are talking about Hamas or any other kind of organizations in that region, but we just simply forget that there is an occupation and there is a movement of resistance Of course, you can blame the attitudes or methods that these organizations are using sometimes, but it doesn't make them terrorist organizations, in my perception, as a international lawyer. Okay.
Thank you. And yeah, behind, yeah. Name and affiliation, short question, please.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Julia Perso. I work with the Swiss Embassy. As you probably all know, there have been quite a few initiatives in the past to deal with the Palestinian and Israeli conflicts. One of them is the Geneva Initiative, which allowed negotiators from both sides to draft a comprehensive agreement on what could the end of the Israeli conflict, the Israeli and Palestinian conflict look like. It is quite detailed. It is also built on previous official negotiations, such as the Arab Peace Initiative and so forth. And it also includes, let me check the exact name, an implementation and verification group, under which would be a multinational force to provide for security guarantees to the parties, act as deterrent, and oversee the implementation of the provision of the agreement, which to me sounds quite similar to the model that you are now discussing. And I would be interested to hear your view on this initiative and how it might relate to your project, and maybe how it can be built upon. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Geneva Initiative, how this project, this guarantorship might be different from Geneva Initiative?
You know, whenever Turkey...
That's correct, right? That was the question, basically.
Okay. You know, nowadays we are talking about Turkey's proposal about guarantorship, but suddenly we just start to think about the settlement of the disputes altogether. I think it's not the case at the moment. The ceasefire has the priority at the moment. What Turkey is trying to say that we should first of all have a ceasefire before any kind of settlement process. That's the difference here. So ceasefire requires some guarantees, and what Turkey is trying to say that that's needed at the moment. The priority is a ceasefire, I think.
Anybody? So just to say one more thing, so regional countries might be more effective in this process. So I think that's one of the issue from our discussion. And the last one is maybe there might be some kind of steering committee that convenes regularly and take care of those issues on top of what you said. I mean, in terms of verification and all of those things. So it is somehow maybe updated version, adding some regular countries as guarantors of the whole process. So, and just to say one word regarding the one of those previous questions, why Israel needs to be part of this whole process. Look, Israel invested on normalization with Gulf countries and some other Arab countries for a long time, but eventually once this conflict started, all of them again was almost for nothing. Right now, under these conditions, it's impossible to go through the normalization, at least right now. So this is a cost for Israeli side as well. So you invest in this for like a couple years, you work on this, but eventually you are at the starting point. So, and also the settlements. It's very difficult for Israel to convince people to come and live in those settlements. Settlements was supposed to be castles for Israeli citizens, but now they're prisons. So they turned into prisons. Israel tried to like create Swiss cheese in like Palestinian land, but at the end of the day, it created its own prison from analytical point of view. So that's why they deserve that kind of security for themselves as well. Yeah. Yeah, please. Yes. And name and affiliation. Sure.
Working? No, yes. Hello, my name is Rahil Kudaysat. I'm from Jordan, working in UN staff and international relations PhD student. So my question is to Professor Mahieddin, since you mentioned something about leaders and how they should make like immediate decisions. So King Abdullah, almost 1 week ago, he stated in the United Nations Assembly meeting in the opening speech, and he mentioned that accepting Palestinian refugees in Jordan and Egypt is a red line matter and unacceptable. So, and by solving this conflict, by creating another conflict or issue is not a solution. So as a professor, your point of view, may you please give me your point of view about this, and if this issue may happen in the future or not? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, I think this is a reactionary stance, from both sides. That's both Jordan and Egypt. They have declared this as a red line because the forced displacement of the Palestinians will create further social chaos and political instability in both countries. Let's not forget that more than half of the Jordanian population is already Palestinian, but according to calculations, for instance, more than 85% of Hamas militants are orphans. So they have nothing to lose. They used to live in, torture rooms or open prison, whatever you call it, I don't know, but it's not a humane place in which they live nowadays, wherever they are, that is in the occupied territories. The same for the West Bank, not only for the Gaza Strip. So they are much more politicized. So they are at the brink of extinction, physical extinction, as I've said. So it will naturally change the color of the politics in these two countries. The problem is neither of these countries take initiative, okay? So let's say they oppose something, but they do not want something. They don't have any demand, okay? Any political demand in their relationship with any other regional or global actors. That's the problem.
Yes, please. Name and affiliation, no comment, short question.
Okay, thank you. My name is Toprak Sezgin. I'm here representing the Middle East Technical University Foreign Policy and International Relations Society. I had a question for Dr. Şahin Eray Kırdım. You mentioned that a change of regime, at least a change in political parties, was necessary for Israel to be more active or more efficient in the peace-building process. Would you say that there's a similar need for the Palestinian side? Or at least do you think there needs to be a stronger fusion between the West Bank and Gaza Strip Authority in order to make the peace process stronger? Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Sezgin, thank you for your question. So I was stating that point for the Israeli part only because as far as I see, the Palestinian side, at least they seem ready to start negotiations. In the field as well, there's a asymmetric military balance because the Israeli side is very powerful in terms of military power, and also they are not very reluctant to use illegal weapons on the Palestinians. On the other hand, the Palestinians are using rocks or very simple materials to fight or resist. So from my perspective, there is no necessary for a leadership change in the Palestinian side.
Thank you. Any questions? Yes, please.
the Center of Strategic Research for organizing such a kind of important panel. My name is Lema Manula. I'm a student at Social Science University of Ankara, Department of International Relations, and at the same time I'm an intern student in ANKASAM in the field of Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Central Asia policies. I have a question from Professor Muhittin Ataman. As you know, the Israel-Palestinian conflict is a centuries-old problem that threatens stability and security in the region. The guarantorship model has emerged as a new approach to resolving this conflict. So I have a question according to that. Can the guarantorship model really offer a solution to the Israeli and Palestinian conflict? And how can the guarantorship model contribute to the economic development of Israel and Palestine? And also, I have a question from Yücel Acar, Professor Yücel Acar. How do you evaluate Russian attitude toward the Palestinian state? Also, Russian President Vladimir Putin said America is seeking to monopolize international effort in peacemaking. How do you evaluate his statement? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Very briefly, thank you very much for the questions. Yes, in principle, Israel can be forced to sit on the negotiation table and comply with the conditions of this guarantorship system. There are some certain conditions. From the point that where I look, the cost of the illegitimate Israeli policies has been increasing for the Western countries. Yeah, that's true. For now, they provide unconditional support. But let's take this as a conjunctural positioning. So, the rise of the non-West, the rise of China, the rise of Africa continent, the rise of Latin America, and many other countries, they began, that is, to put direct or indirect pressure for the United States and other Western countries to disengage from some regions. As a matter of fact, the United States, for the last decade, it disengaged from the Middle East. France has been disengaging from the Sahel region, the West African region. So the Western countries, I don't know how long they can otherize, alienate, more than 50 Muslim countries at the expense of the Israeli-Palestinian question. Okay? So sooner or later, as Nuh Yilmaz Bey just has underlined, the Israel has been cutting the branch it sits on. Let me clarify what's significant within this context. It's quite critical. Hamas has declared its second political paper on May 1st of 2017. It was unheard. No one take this into consideration. This is when, for the first time, Hamas has agreed that it will accept the two-state solution. Till then, it used to claim that they will not recognize the very existence of the Israeli state, but it has changed its position. So nowadays, it's time for the Israeli side to comply with the new conditions, I think. About the economic development, naturally, the list of the arms exporters in the world, if you look at this list, most of them, they are from the Middle Eastern region, unfortunately. The Gulf countries and other regional countries. So if we bring political stability and a sustainable peace to the region, naturally all states will invest in economic development rather than investing in killing one another and in the defense industry. Thank you very much.
Yes, there is a question about Russian policy towards this conflict. I think I'm not an expert on Russian foreign policy on Middle East, but I can say a couple of observations of myself concerning Russian attitudes in the Middle East. I don't see quite a big value of what Putin has recently said about this conflict, simply because there is an ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine that really affects the Russian attitudes globally. And I just remembered that, if you are really sincerely looking for a just, peaceful settlement of these kind of disputes, there were plenty of times in the past, you know, to enforce the relevant international legal rules in the region. Now it's going to turn into a global competition, and the Middle East is going to be a part of this between United States and Russia and some other countries. I think it's not a proper platform, legal platform, to discuss a just settlement. That's my perception, actually.
Thank you. By the way, please follow our Twitter account, SAMMFA, and we will continue our discussions later on as Center for Strategic Research. This is the beginning, at least for my term, but we will continue to have discussions about these kind of burning policy issues and challenges that our Turkey and also our region face with. So this is just the beginning, so thank you for coming. And any other question? Yes, please.
From Turkish National Police Academy. My name is Oğuzhan Yanarışık. My question is for you, Mr. Chairman. Are there any positive initial response from potential contributors to this model? If there are not, should Turkey wait for others to come on before creating some concrete conditions for this model, or should it go on itself? Thank you.
We are working on this process. Of course, we communicated this with some of our partners or allies or friends. So we discussed certain ideas with other regional, especially the regional countries. We discussed that with, for example, I mean, like if you follow the media, so the American Minister of Foreign Affairs' visit, Secretary of State's visit, was not very successful to the region. He just returned back empty-handed and did have nothing to really offer as a kind of concrete solution. So I think now one of the reasons of this was the close coordination among the regional countries vis-à-vis this crisis. So once we have better relations with especially Egypt, so we have better coordination. We discuss these things with other countries as well, because like the Egypt and Jordan, they are under unbelievable stress as more than us. So because we are affected from this conflict, but not as much as the neighboring countries because of their geographical position. So I cannot say we agreed on something concrete, but the OIC communique was a start. So in that communique, as I said, the countries decided to discuss what kind of concrete measures can be taken against Israel regarding economy, tourism, diplomacy, etc. So like we are talking some concrete measures. I'm not here to really declare what those are, but there will be some. But mostly it is the United States of America. I mean, US is the one who really should put more pressure on Israel to stop the aggression rather than like inflaming the conflict in the region. So we do our part. So as I said, I cannot be transparent about everything, but there are some nucleus of the discussion, and it will turn into some kind of concrete offer by getting and collecting some more contributions to our friends and countries that are most affected. So thank you. Yes, last question. So we had a little bit more time, but so let's take the last question and then finish.
My name is Onur Dur. I'm assistant professor at Ankara Social Science University. My question is, I'm wondering whether the proposed guarantorship system would be interpreted in the light of Kosovo experience, especially regarding the international administration of the territory, named Gaza, and the presence of international force under the auspices of OIC.
A brief Yes, there have been some UN decisions of General Assembly and sometimes Security Council. There were no mention of guarantorship, but as some scholars say, despite the fact that they don't mention guarantorship, actually these kind of decisions of the United Nations General Assembly have been a kind of providing guarantee for application of these principles that come from these decisions. I think for the Palestinian issue, I think it's really difficult to compare them with Kosovo, simply because the Israeli side does not feel in the same position as Serbia probably felt. So it requires that very strong support or guarantorship is needed to apply such a decision if United Nations General Assembly is able to take such a decision for Palestine. As I say, again, in the case of Serbia, the international support was enough. I think in this case, there would be a huge amount of international force, and considering the existing situation, I just don't believe that, at least in the short term, we would see such a strong international guarantee for such kind of UN General Assembly decision.
Yeah, thank you. Before I close, let me just tell last thing or repeat my point. We need a permanent settlement in the region as Turkey, as our Minister of Foreign Affairs mentioned in his latest article in Inside Turkey. So for this permanent settlement, we are looking for what kind of mechanism might work. So the guarantorship is our offer. So whether this will work or not, we will see. But the war will end, but the day after, we have to really make this war as the last war regarding this issue. So that's why, I mean, the root cause of this problem right now is there is no country, there is no party in this conflict that would enforce Israel to abide by the rules of the agreements that they signed. So that is why guarantorship might give regional countries to help Palestine state to really found itself as a real state, concrete state, and also would convince Israel, the other side might convince Israel to really continue this discussion to create security for both Israel and Palestine. So thank you for joining. So thank you, I thank to our speakers for following the rules and making their comments and presentations short. So hope to see you again. Thank you.